91 following some pushback from people, politicians who wanted this to be a reality, and his party also agreed to have and endorsed presidential term limits of 2 5-year terms that continue to lead, and something that means that you will never actually witness a leadership that will take 24 years as you did back in the day. And he did retire, as we told you earlier on, in December 30th, in 2002. After resigning, he did endorse the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, who did not make it to power back then. But still, once he left power, he literally kept off, and we would have politicians thronging to his home looking for some wisdom. And they do say when an old man dies, it is a library that has burnt. And from the sentiments we get from the current presidents that are ongoing, people who experience him, indeed his is a loss in terms of experience, politically, culturally, in education-wise, and in the many ways that he sought to serve the people of Kenya.
We heard even from the president of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, giving his tribute and remembering Moi and some of the things he remembered and stood out for Moi during his time. Of course, being a man that was, first of all, very generous, as described there by the Court Secretary General Francis Atwoli. He was also very religious. We remember that Moi never or rarely missed a church service and was very faithful to attending, particularly the chapel in Kabarak. Benchmarking on his legacy of education. Kabarak University was one of his brainchild, and one that has lived to this day to bring out and churn out some of the best students in this country. Now, what you can see on your screens is a military arrangement, which probably would mean that the body is not very far from being brought from the Nairobi hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 5:20 a.m. We already have heard a statement from the Baringo Senator Gideon Moi confirming that he passed away at 5:20 a.m. and he was at his bedside when that happened. And Lee Funeral Home is going to be where the body is going to be preserved until the time of the funeral. The president has already declared a time of mourning in Kenya, and as we know, flags are going to be flying half-mast at all embassy, government buildings, all buildings that have the flag are going to be at half-mast as a sign of Kenya mourning the death of the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi.
And as we awaken to that sad bit of news, the leaders of the country, aside from citizens, are coming out to give their memories, condolences, messages. And just to read some of those, we are told by the team around former President Honorable Mwai Kibaki, message of condolence to his family and friends and of the fallen President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi will take a little time to dispatch, understandably, because they intend to give it a personal touch that will demand a bit of time. It is estimated that this will come out at 12:30 at the very latest, and this is according to Ngari Gitiku, who is private secretary, who is asking for all to bear with them as they craft that sensitive message. And then we have a message of condolence from the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin B.N. Muturi, and with regard to the passing on of the second President of Kenya, His Excellency Daniel Arap Moi. It is with greatest sadness that I have learnt of the passing of Kenya's great statesman, His Excellency President Daniel Arap Moi. It is indeed the sad end of an era. On behalf of my family and the National Assembly, I send my heartfelt condolences to President Moi's families, our colleagues in Parliament, Rongai MP Honorable Raymond Moi, Baringo Senator Honorable Gideon Moi, and all Kenyans. President Moi's untimely demise leaves a huge gap among our African elderly statesmen, whom ourselves as younger leaders look upon from time to time for wise counsel and leadership. He will be remembered for his great efforts towards consolidating peace and tranquility within the Horn of Africa and largely the East African region, and at a very difficult time for the region and the African continent. If in President Daniel Arap Moi we mourn the passing of a distinguished son of Kenya and the great African icon whose passion for the renaissance of the East African community is unmatched. President Moi was an amiable, great man full of cheer. He leaves an indelible print in the mastery of Kenyan political governance, where he managed to gather sufficient support from all areas of the country to preserve Kenya as one nation. President Moi was an astute politician, always brimming with insight and revealing anecdotes that he employed pragmatic nationalism to keep the country together for the 24 years that he led our nation. President Moi has indeed earned his place in history of the making of a great nation. May the Almighty God rest his soul in eternal peace. Honorable Justin Muturi, EGH MP, Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya. We have yet another message also from the Deputy President that was posted earlier on. Such a dull morning. Kenya's second President, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, is dead at age 95. May God give him and his family a peace of mind. What can you remember the Mzee for?
Yes, and well, some of the leaders we have seen at Lee Funeral Home are the likes of Senator Sakaja, Gladys Bose Sholay. But would like to now also cross over to Patrick Amimo, who is at Lee Funeral Home, to just give us an update of possibly what is happening and what we're waiting for. We can see a military arrangement there. Patrick Amimo, kindly just update us on what's happening on the ground. All right, and Patrick Amimo, who is at Lee Funeral Home, is going to give us an update of what we are waiting for, which is the body of the late president. We do know that Awin Skodek has now been cordoned off and would probably remain a high security zone for some time. Patrick Amimo, if you can hear me, kindly just give us an update of what's happening where you are.
Thank you, Defender. At the Lee Funeral Home already, you can see the military has already operated. This particular
We apologize for the poor quality of that call, but we'll try and work on that and come back to you, Patrick, just to give us an update. But what you see there is members of the disciplined forces standing in wait for the body of the late President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, which is going to be brought to the Lee Funeral Home, where it is going to be preserved until the time of the funeral. We do know that he passed away or died this morning at 5:20 a.m. at the Nairobi hospital. But of course,